What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down the new weapon meta, because Masters Copenhagen has showcased a lot of changes to what weapons pros are using, and we should pay attention, because then we know exactly what strategies and weapons we should be using in our games. So we're going to break it all down, but the GameLeap website's the best place to dominate pop-off with tips, tricks, guides, and everything you need to absolutely frag out, including mechanical weapon courses, so you can have aim like some of the best players in the world. But let's jump right into it. Now, first off, if you're not watching Masters Copenhagen, what are you doing? Because these games are freaking insane. We're seeing some of the best players in the world pop off, and it's really interesting to watch. We've already broke down a lot of crazy changes to the agent meta when characters like Sova and Jet have been falling off in favor of characters like Raze, characters like Fade, and the meta as we know it is really different, with Chamber leading the pack as probably the most broken character right now. But we aren't talking about agents in this video. We are talking about weapons, because the weapon pick rate for Masters so far has been revealed, and we can actually look into it here. And looking at it, we can see that the Vandal is far and away the most picked weapon, and it's not close. Look at the Phantom at only 19% compared to the Vandal at almost freaking 40%. That means more than double as many people at the pro level are picking Vandal versus Phantom. And we really got to think about, what does this tell us? Well, the thing that you got to understand is that North America has traditionally been something closer to 50-50, even though that's not the case anymore. But the rest of the regions are more than likely going to be favoring that Vandal. Especially the EMEA region as a whole is going to be favoring the Vandal over anything else, and I don't exactly know if it has to do with the CSGO roots. I have no exact idea why these regions would favor that, but it is just apparent that by the numbers, except for NA and one other region, Vandal is like far and away overrepresented or overpicked compared to the Phantom. Now, that being said, there is one region holding it down for the Phantom users, and that's the Korean region. Specifically, DRX right now on Masters Copenhagen is one of the best Korean teams, period. And they are really high on Phantom. They pick Phantom more than any other team, which is definitely interesting to say the least, considering Korean players on average have very good mechanics. It's not like they can't use the Vandal. It's just that they have been shown to prefer it, and oftentimes the strategies will be a lot more complex. As you know, the Korean region has been known for doing tons of set team plays and combination coordination based plays, and the reliability of the Phantom is something that makes a lot of sense when you want reliability in your team joint push strategies, rather than necessarily isolated gunfights that you have a slight advantage in. Now, the other thing that is important to consider is this number used to be a lot more at parity. After the last big changes that we had to the Phantom and the Vandal, they were almost 50-50, and they were that way for a long time if you average the regions. But what slowly happened over time is the Vandal has been accumulating more and more pick rate, to now we're in this point where if you just look at the stats, you're like, yeah, the Phantom needs to be buffed in some way. And while that might be true, and we'll talk about that more in a second, you also have to think about what the meta is and how the meta directly can dictate what weapons are good. First off, let's talk about maps, and Icebox being an addition, and on top of that, Breeze being an added map. These maps favor the Vandal by quite a bit. They're really wide open long range maps where having the Vandal's reliability in one taps is amazing. Getting players to get away if they even like take that 140 from the Phantom is going to be a really bad situation, because they could set up an entirely different engagement, lurk in an entirely different place, play post plant, and if an enemy is alive at all, it can be really bad, even if you did a ton of damage to them. And there's not a lot of close range engagements where the Phantom really thrives in. So when you combine all that together, the Vandal just makes a lot more sense, and Icebox is similar in a lot of ways, not to the same extent. But when these maps are added, and when you add more maps like this, the Vandal all of a sudden becomes better and better. Now, I do think that Pearl, for the most part, is a map that is still up in the air. I think that there are parts of that map that are definitely Vandal, very Vandal favored, but there are other parts of the map that are more close range. So all in all, I think it might be kind of a wash on that map, and especially because there's a whole bunch of wall bangable areas. There is like extra incentive to have more bullets and spray more. So the Phantom might actually get the edge on this map. But all in all, you got to realize that the weapon meta can directly be changed by introductions to new maps. So we're going to have to wait and see. And if there are too many maps in a row or too many maps altogether that really favor the Vandal, especially when they took out Split that favored the Phantom, and that's still being played at Masters Copenhagen, unlike Ranked, where that's not even going to be calculated in, and you take away a Phantom map, Phantom is looking bad to the point where it's like, hey, maybe we actually need to buff this weapon, because then you take away the Split stats, and all of a sudden the Phantom has like a sub 15% pick rate compared to the Vandal, and that's just really not a good look for the weapon. And unless they do other things to rebalance it as far as maps or agents are concerned, we'll talk more about agents in a second, the Vandal could keep running away with this quote-unquote weapon war where it's winning by far. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about is the agent meta. And I do think that one character in particular is largely affecting this meta, and it's definitely Chamber. Chamber's a character that thrives on the ability to play an off angle or play a very specific angle, shoot 1 or 2 bullets, teleport away, and having a Vandal be that weapon makes a lot more sense. And being able to punish a Chamber very precisely, whether he's opping or whether he's rifling in an off angle, whatever the case may be, and being able to guarantee that one-tap trade means that the Vandal is going to thrive in those environments. There's a lot less spray war and a lot more instant kills and punishing for positioning or trying to get a kill and get out safely. And that environment where Chamber has like a over 80% pick rate at some times, that means that the Vandal is just going to be one of the better weapons to choose from. A lot of the strengths of the Phantom isn't that easy to utilize up against Chamber. And when Chamber's the top of the meta, now all of a sudden the Vandal just becomes better and better. And also the Vandal pick rate is definitely super swayed because almost every single Chamber across the board is freaking using the Vandal. There are a couple of exceptions, but we saw early in the tournament, Ye like tried the Phantom for like a couple of matches and he's like, nah, goes back to the Vandal, doesn't even care. And I do think that that is also artificially inflating the Vandal, but the numbers just don't lie, and it's looking like the Vandal right now is the better meta rifle. Doesn't mean you can't use the Phantom, doesn't mean the Phantom doesn't have its strengths. We've talked about them pretty much ad nauseum in a number of different videos, but for the most part, Vandal is winning right now in the weapon war. Now we're gonna talk about some other weapons, but I do wanna ask your question down below. Do you still use the Phantom? If so, why? And have you been using the Vandal more? I wanna hear about all that down below. Now, looking at the other weapons, the only really interesting statistic that I wanted to break down is the Marshal. Marshal sees very little play. And it's kind of strange because the Marshal sees a ton of play in Ranked, of course. A lot of people buy the Marshal like crazy, but in Pro Play, we're seeing very little. And the reality of the situation is it's probably due to the change from Jet to Chamber. A lot less Jet, who is really great with the Marshal. And using Chamber means that your pistol is, in a lot of cases, more cost effective, better, and it just makes more sense to use rather than a Marshal. And maybe on very specific maps, you could use the Marshal, but Chamber's pistol is just far more flexible. So I have to say that that's probably the reason why that weapon is used so little, but definitely let me know how you feel about the Marshal right now in its current state. But last up, we do got to talk about 2 weapons that are basically not used at all. The Bucky is just garbage. We've talked about how the Bucky is just really, really bad, but the Ares actually sees almost no play, which is kind of crazy. The wallbang ability of the Ares is not really at the forefront right now. There's a lot of other weapons that people are using more, the Bulldog, Guardian, even a little bit, sometimes the Judge, and then just a number of different weapons. Like the Spectre sees a reliable amount of play. The Sheriff sees quite a bit amount of play. I've told people a lot that mastering the Sheriff is a way that you could get a ton of percentage points in your ranked games, and something you should definitely do. And pros are showing that left, right, and center right now in Masters Copenhagen. But I am interested in the Ares. I think it's so weird how the Ares have been balanced lately from, you know, used slightly to completely busted to nerfed back to used none at all. It's just very, very weird. I feel like they haven't quite found the happy medium for this weapon. But if you could buff or nerf any of the weapons on this list, I really want to hear what you would do. And I also want to know if you could add a weapon, create one from thin air, that would actually have an impact here, what kind of weapon would you make? Would you make another rifle? Would you make a sniper or a sidearm? What would it be? I really want to hear your opinion about all that. But go to the GameLeap website for tips, tricks, guides, and so much about how to pop off and dominate right now. Do yourself a favor and go check it out right now down below.